Now, a common thing to use such loops for is to use them in conjunction with arrays. Remember, an array, I'll just create a variable here, looks like this with brackets and contains multiple values. Now, since we have multiple values in one place, I think it's one of the first things you think about that you could loop through that and use these values step by step or value for value. You could do that by setting I back to 0 and going back to incrementing. I'll also change this to being smaller than something, but the something, well, it could now be hard-coded 3, and I could then log array and access the index with, well, the variable I, which of course gets increased up on each round. So now if I hit run, what will we see? Well, we see 1, 2, 3 because I'm now step by step accessing the value in the array. But that's not really the best way because I hard coded the size of the array here. If I change this to 5 because I expect the array to have 5 elements, but it actually only has 3, what would I now get? Well, I get undefined because I'm accessing values which aren't there. So that's not really good because rarely can I know how big an array is. And even if I could know it because I hard coded it, I might change this later on and then I would have to change the size in all places in my code where I hard coded it. So a better way is to use my array and access the length property on that array. Because remember, an array is an object and it happens to have this length property built in. And as this name implies, this gives me the length of the array. So now I'm looping as long as I is smaller than the length of the array. What do you think will happen if I now hit run? Well, you get 1, 2, 3 again, because the length is of course 3. Notice that it is important to understand that since the first index of the array is 0, we have to use the smaller sign then, and not smaller or equal. Because in this case, we would loop until I takes a value of 3, which actually tries to access the 4th element. And that is not the behavior we would like to have. So this is how we would write it to loop through such an array.